Hi, I'm Joseph Noah. I'm a medical doctor and a biochemist, and I'm the author of Document X, Direct Evidence of God's Existence. Now we're going to just round up the idea of miracles performed by prophets. Hopefully we have demonstrated that none of the prophets perform any supernatural events. We based our arguments on reason and logic, the lack of tangible evidence, our experience with the universe, and the fact that the universe is run by fixed predictable laws. We have not covered all the miracles, like Jonah being swallowed by the fish and the physical ascension of Muhammad into the skies, but the same considerations apply. You find that according to the Quran, describes a balanced universe run by fixed predictable laws, and that God himself, he doesn't change these laws. He describes prophets as bashar. The meaning of bashar in Arabic is mortal men constrained by the laws of nature. So the prophets were just like men. They were subject to the laws of nature. They never exceeded the laws of nature. It's not allowed by Allah's laws. The humanness of prophets is stressed in a number of verses. I'm going to give you those verses. You can go look it up. Chapter 2, verse 118, 3, 144, 575, chapter 21, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, chapter 25, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, chapter 6, 35, chapter 6, verse 50, and so on. And these verses stress the humanness of the prophets. But Allah makes the exception here that they were inspired. In other words, they were endowed with divine revelation. That is the difference between us mortals and the prophets. These verses stress the humanness of prophets. And this is very well illustrated in the apparent ascension of the Holy Prophet. So let's just briefly mention that. In chapter 17, verse 93, the unbelievers ridicule the Prophet Muhammad, that they won't believe in him until he ascend into the sky and bring down a book from heaven. Now God then instructs him to reply, "Glory be to God, am I not but a mortal messenger?" In other words, how can I go into the skies when I'm only a mortal messenger? Now what is interesting, if you go to the chapter 17, verse 1, which was revealed before this verse, where the apparent ascension is spoken about, if Muhammad did ascend into the heavens physically, his answer would have been different. He would have said something like, "But I've been there." The second argument against a physical ascension into the sky is that Muhammad was immortal and he would not have survived the hostility of the space environment. And lastly, if he did traverse the heavens, it would mean that God is a physical concept residing somewhere in space. And Muhammad, his mission was directed towards God, which clashes with the idea that God is all-pervading and not confined to space and time. In chapter 50, verse 16, God says he's closer to us than our jugular artery. So, which means God is all-pervading. In chapter 17, verse 60, ascension is referred to as the vision we have showed thee, demonstrating or confirming the non-physical nature of this apparent voyage. What is the meaning for us? If Muhammad ascended into the heavens, what benefit would we derive from this, of something that is impossible to prove? The message for us is that we can also experience the pleasure of that nearness to God, maybe not to the same intensity as the prophet. If we apply ourselves to God, strive in his cause, acquire knowledge, God will reveal the deep secrets, some of the deep secrets of the universe to us, cosmic realities, which is not accessible to the ordinary mind. To clinch the argument, if you look at chapter 2, verse 118, it is stated, the unbelievers say, "Why does not God speak to us? Why is no sign, why is no miraculous sign sent down to us?" And Allah says, "So said the people before, words of similar import, their hearts are alike." Now comes a very important statement. "We've indeed made clear the signs to those who believe." The unbelievers demand that God should speak to them. And in Surah Baqarah, the Jews have a similar demand. They want to see God face to face. Now modern atheists display a similar primitive mentality. They want a physical manifestation of God. Now even an atheist would agree that if God exists, he would be a being that transcends space and time. he would be a non-material being and invisible. And direct observation of such a being is a logical impossibility. Now, if we look at the verse, it says, we've indeed made clear the signs to those who believe. Must refer to the signs of God all around us. The immensity of space and time, the stunning diversity of animals on the planet, the beautiful structure of DNA and so on. The science is all around us. And this rejects the idea of supernatural science, because it says here we have indeed made clear the signs to those who believe. In other words, previous believers and modern day believers. And since no believer today is witnessing virgin births and seas parting, it must therefore refer to the signs of God as seen in nature. In fact, everything in the ultimate sense is a miracle. Muhammad was immortal, and his contemporaries insisted on a miracle. It must have crossed his mind at some stage, if God is so powerful, why can't he allow me to perform just maybe a small miracle to convince these people? And this can be derived from 635. Not even that such a thought went unnoticed by God. And this is the reply to Muhammad's wishes in chapter 26, verse 4. Had it been our will, we could have sent down a visible sign from the skies, which would have forced the unbelievers, which would have forced their necks to bow down in humility before it. In other words, a visible sign from the heavens, a spectacular miracle, would have forced the unbelievers into subjection, nullifying free will, which is a critical component of true intellectual and spiritual belief. A belief adopted in this manner would have no meaning. True belief is accomplished through a deep study of nature, the intrinsic merits of the Quran, and studying the scientific jewels of the Quran.